Everyone, today we start to see where things go wrong for Paul. When the 7 days of purification were almost over, the Jews from the provinces of Asia saw Paul in the temple. Grabbing him, they threw the whole crowd into confusion by shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help! This is the man who teaches everyone, everywhere, against our people, the law, and this place. Not only that, he even brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They said this because they had seen Trophimus the Ephesian in the city with him earlier, and they assumed Paul had brought him into the temple. The entire city was stirred up. The people came rushing, seizing Paul, and dragged him out of the temple. Immediately the gates were closed, and while they were trying to kill him, a report reached the commander of the company of soldiers that all Jerusalem was in a state of confusion. Some of the crowd shouted one thing, others shouted something else, and because of the commotion, the commander couldn't learn the truth, so he ordered Paul to be taken to the military headquarters. When Paul reached the steps, he had to be carried by the soldiers in order to protect him from the violence of the crowd. So here we see what can happen when religious people make assumptions. Right? This accusation they make against him here is what leads to years of trials and Paul's eventual execution. They think they know what Paul is doing and what Paul believes. I mentioned at the beginning this purification ritual because Paul was going to the temple to carry out this Jewish practice. And the intent behind doing that was to prove to his enemies that Paul doesn't teach Jewish people to reject Judaism. Obviously, that kind of backfires. Right? They just know that he's abandoned the faith, and they know that he has brought somebody in who's defiling the temple. Now, Paul does preach a message that challenges how the Jewish people understand God's mission and their place in it. But as he often says, this is just a fulfillment of what God is doing and has always been doing through Israel. It's not a rejection of it. But they don't hear that, though, because they assume they know what he's doing. We see here, and we see it today, that people often get angry and sometimes even violent when you challenge their worldview. In fact, we know even better now that our brains process that kind of information that doesn't fit in the same way as a physical attack. And that's why people respond so violently sometimes. And here, it's what causes yet another riot for Paul. So for us, can we commit to avoiding the assumptions that lead to accusations and anger? You can still disagree with people. You still might think they're wrong. But can you hear what they actually are saying instead of just assuming you know what they think? You might change your mind. You might not. That's fine. But can we commit ourselves to being people who listen for the truth even when it challenges us?